So I have been running my reimbursement dietitian coaching program for about 6 years now, and I do not think I have ever done a basic overview of how insurance works. So this video is for anybody who's thinking about accepting insurance in their practice, working for somebody else, and just wondering what that process actually entails. And then anybody who's just curious about a timeline for getting credentialed all the way up to billing. Okay, so I want to walk you guys through the process of what that looks like. And for those of you who do not know me, I'm Amy Plano. I'm the reimbursement dietitian. I've been billing insurance for 20 years at this point. Every year, I have the privilege of coaching hundreds, thousands of dietitians in my reimbursement coaching programs, master classes, and through my Epic resources. And today, I wanted to provide an overview how insurance works. I'm going to walk you guys through, I think there's like 7 different pieces of it. So the number one piece, and I refer to this as pre-credentialing, okay? Pre-credentialing is when you're basically getting all of your shit set up, okay? So for example, you need malpractice insurance. You need your business entity identified in your EIN. You need your type 1 NPI. You need a bank account associated with the new business account for the new business. Okay. Those are the things you need before you start the insurance process. And I just realized I forgot a very important one, which is you need a physical address, right? The insurance companies are now requiring, right? We are no longer in COVID. You need a physical address. Okay. So preliminary steps are getting all of those ducks in a row. I have a ton of resources, and even the opt-in on my homepage, Reimbursement Dietitian, actually walks you through those first 5 steps. I call those pre-credentialing, okay? The second main piece for all of the commercial payers is completing your CAQH application. I say application in air quotes because it's not really an application. It is essentially a database where you enter in all of your personal information, so the insurance companies only have to check it once. Think about it like Dicus or like the Common app. I think if they still have that when you apply to college, right? You fill it out once and then all of the insurance companies will use it in some capacity. The only one that does not use it, in my experience, is Medicare. They do not access the CAQH, but all of the other commercial payers will. So step 1, pre-credentialing, get all of your shit lined up. Step 2, CAQH. The third step is determining which insurance companies and your state you want to apply for. I have a bunch of blogs on Reimbursement Dietitian talking about the state to state nuances, but in this day and age, you can basically do all of the applications online. There's a few that you will need to call, a provider line to get the email sent to you. And then there are some insurances which kind of blow your mind that you can literally just call, give a couple key pieces of information, and then they will credential you basically over the phone. But as a whole, most of the applications can be done online. So once we figure out the payers, then we put in our applications, right? If you're somebody who needs support with doing the credentialing, my team does it. We're going to put a link below this video if you want to put in an application. We only work with a handful of dietitians as this is not our main business. But if you want us to do the credentialing and contracting for you, we're happy to do it. With that being said, there are 2 pieces to actually getting in network with a particular insurance company. There is the credentialing process that can take anywhere from 60 to 90 days. And then once you go through the credentialing process, think about that. Think about the credentialing process like your resume. Then you get pushed over to the contracting process, which can take another 60 to 90 days. It's very confusing in the beginning because often we will get like a DocuSign very quickly. But the reality is that then your application still needs to go through the contracting process because somebody else needs to countersign that particular contract. So two steps, credentialing and contracting. And I would say, as a whole, in my experience, from being boots on the ground and doing it for my team, and as well as an agency that does credentialing for you guys, I would say on average it takes about 4 to 6 months, depending upon your state, right? The next piece is you need to set up all of your shit with the payers, right? So you need to set up your payer portals. You need to set up your EFTs for electronic payments. You need to set up your ERAs, which are different from EFTs, and those link the clearinghouse that you're using for submitting insurance claims back from the insurance company to you. So EFTs just make sure the money goes into the right account. Remember, that's why I said in step one, pre-credentialing, we need to have a bank account associated with our business and that tax ID. And then, like I said, and so EFTs, ERAs, payer portals, if you do not set up EFTs, it will probably take about 6 to 8 weeks to get your first insurance check, right? And even at best, sometimes they will fax you what we call in our world like a gift card. It's really called a V card, and you will have to process that through your credit card processor, whether you use Square or Stripe or Stacks, and they will take 3% of that amount. So you want to set up your EFTs. In our credentialing services, that is something that we offer, but you definitely want to set that up, right? And so when you set up your contracts, you also got a fee schedule. The fee schedule tells you how much you can expect from each insurance company, right? And so that's very important to know because before we submit an insurance claim, there should be no guessing how much we should be getting, right? So setting everything up and then making sure we have a copy of our signed executed contract. We have effective dates for when we can start billing insurance. And then we have all of the back end things set up to make sure that we know when we're paid and cha-ching that it's hitting our bank accounts, right? So once we go through contracting, then we move through to setting all of the stuff up, right? Then comes the actual billing part, right? And so with most insurance companies, you have, it depends, but let's just say 180 days from the date of service. Some are 90 days to submit the insurance claim, right? So the claim needs to go from your EMR through a clearinghouse like ClaimMD, Office Ally, or Availity, my least favorite one, to the insurance companies. And then with that being said, most insurance companies can take anywhere from, I would say, like 48 hours we get paid, all the way up to, I'm going to say 6 weeks for self-funded insurance plans. So these are plans that are funded by an employer that generally have several moving pieces. So they go from you to them to the insurance back to the employer, and then the payment is dispersed from usually a third-party payer. So as a whole, I would say in my practice, we're almost always paid within 2 weeks. I would say self-funded plans and Medicare plans always take about 4 to 6 weeks. Once again, we are getting EFTs. And so if in that step of setting everything up, you did not do all of the things, it will take probably, I would say, about 6 weeks to get that first check, right? And so once we submit the claim, that's the hard part, right? Making sure we have all of the right codes, right? So that's when billing and coding education is key, because if it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks to, on average, process, if we get a denial because we did not do what we wanted to do on round one, it's going to take the same amount of time once we fix it. What I really want to drive home, and I think this is a confusing part, is in my experience, if you make mistakes, you can always fix them. So I much rather you guys not be fearful of making mistakes You want to do shit right the first time. But with that being said, if it does not go right the first time, you can always correct the claim as long as you do it correctly. And just to be very clear, there is a statute of limitations in terms of like how long and you have to correct it and submit it, right? So we have to check our contracts on all of those. And so the last thing is really you send the insurance claim to the insurance payer. That goes through your portal, right? It takes X amount of days to get paid. And then the next part is interpreting what we call the ERA, which is the electronic version of how we got paid, or the EOB, which is basically the physical version, right? If you set up your ERAs correctly, that information should sync directly from the payer to your EMR. So if you're using ClaimMD for practice better, right? If you enrolled in the ERA correctly, it's going to sync back and forth, right? Relax. If you did not set it up correctly, you can just go to the payer portal and find out if the claims were processed and how they were processed, right? So at this point, once we get the EOB back, there's really only two things we do next, right? It's either we were paid perfectly, so everything is good. I'm going to say three things. You're either paid perfectly, everything looks legit. The second piece, which I see a lot and totally normal, probably for the first several months, is maybe you got a denial and you had to do a claim correction. Or the third piece is there was patient responsibility. On the EOB or in the ERA, the electronic version of the EOB, it will show if there is any patient responsibility. Patient responsibility refers to things like copays, deductibles needing to be satisfied, coinsurance. If you submitted the claim preventative under the preventative side of the patient's policy, there should be no cost share. That is like the litmus test. Did you submit the claim probably as you wanted it to? If it processed correctly, with none of that. If you know for certain, okay, with 100% certainty, the way you submitted the claim was intentional, meaning you knew that maybe you were using a medical ICD-10 code. So of course there would be a patient responsibility. It's only at that point do you then bill your patient, right? In my practice, nobody is seen without a credit card on file. So the way that we do those scenarios, if there is a patient responsibility, which in my practice is very low, because we are generally billing under the patient's preventative side. If there is one, the process, even though we have a financial form signed by them, even though they're giving us permission, and even though we have their credit card on file, we still personally reach out to the patient, let them know the scenario, even though they got the same EOB, because that way I just feel like it's respectful. So we then tell them, we're going to process your credit card payment for $40 for your copay, for your visit on X date by Friday, 5 p.m. Okay. So our goal is usually to get them on the phone. Once again, I know we have the paperwork signed and I know we have their credit card on file, but I personally like to reach out if we can. We usually reach out twice if there is a patient responsibility. We try to avoid the patient portal, even though that's the most secure way, because a lot of times patients are less apt to log in. I know in 2026, nobody calls anybody anymore. So, like, if you have a secure text line like we do, you might text them. And then, more importantly, just leave them a voicemail explaining you will be charging their card, right? And so that is the overview of the reimbursement process, right? Starting with pre-credentialing. So getting all of those things lined up in a row, making sure we did our CAQH, we attested it, and it is correct. Number three, pulling the payers we want to apply to. Number 4 and number 5, the credentialing and contracting process, right? That can take anywhere from 4 to 6 months, right? Then the last kind of back end pieces are setting up the payer portals, setting up our ERAs with our EMRs, setting up our EFTs so we get paid, and confirming we have our insurance contracts in their entirety with their effective dates with our fee schedule, right? Then we go on to billing. The process of billing should be really quick. We want to go as quick as possible, although we do have some time. Then we probably wait anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks to get paid. And lastly, if there is any patient responsibility, we try to do what's ethically correct, meaning if you fucked up, you should eat it. And I don't want to hear that. Or you may need to correct it. But personally, I do not feel like it is just okay to run their card. So that is the overview of the process. I cannot believe in 6+ years of running these coaching programs and doing videos just like that, that I missed this one. So for anybody who's looking for support, we have epic coaching programs that support you at every single aspect of your journey. Whether you are brand new to insurance, welcome, or you've been billing the shit out of insurance for 10+ years and you're just looking to scale, I have products and services that help all dietitians and CNSs at every level. We're going to drop them below. And if you have questions on the process, understandably so, drop them below this video and my team and myself will do our very best to direct you, because I want you, if you walk away from this with anything, I want you to know how the process works. And I feel like many people do not understand how long it takes as long as what to expect, which for me is most critical.